When you look at the dragons, what do you see? It's important. What do you see?
I suppose I see us.
Tell me.
Everyone says Targaryens are closer to gods than to men. But they say that because of our dragons. Without them, we're just like everyone else.
The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. They are a power man should never have trifled with. One that brought Valyria its doom. If we don't mind our own histories, it would do the same to us. Targaryen must understand this to be king. Or queen.
And welcome to another episode of the Wrap Up, where we will be discussing all things A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. This week is episode 3, titled The Squire. And joining me today to break down everything that went down is my co-host for the show, Evan Harris.
Glad to be here. Pretty big episode today. Things have changed. Last week, the Targaryens arrived, changing the whole landscape of the show. And now, Egg reveal comes in. And that changes everything for the dynamic between Egg and Duncan. How will things change? How will things proceed from here on out? We're halfway through the season now, right? I think there's only 6 episodes. So we're halfway through the season. People are getting a taste for what the pacing, the tones like now, and things are happening. I'm really enjoying this show, and I think this reveal is really going to spice things up even more. So I'm excited to see where things go from here.
Yeah, did you know this little twist going into it? I'm assuming so, right? You don't read the books? Yeah.
I don't read the novellas. But this was the reveal that I knew going in. And it was funny because I think Ira Parker, the showrunner, was talking about it like, yeah, I think even Ryan Condal gave him a tip saying like, this reveal isn't really that big of a spoiler or a plot point. It's okay to like, drip feed us, which they did episodes 1 and 2 and 3. But now we got the big reveal, and I think there are bigger things to come in regards to this show. Hopefully, maybe, I don't know. Again, I don't read the novellas, but just in terms of like plot progression, I think there are bigger things to come, especially with their dynamic. But yeah, I knew this going in. My dad didn't know. My dad sent me a good text. I think it was like 11 o'clock, and I was getting ready to watch the show. He was like, "OMG, did you watch it yet?" And I'm like, "I wonder what happened." And then I watched the episode. I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool, Dad. Yeah, that was pretty crazy." It was funny because I went out to eat with my dad talking about the show, and he was like, "I kind of like it," and I didn't tell him about the reveal, but like, I never want to assume people know about this. We kind of didn't. We kind of did in our own podcast, but now we have full reign to talk about anything in regards to Egg / Aegon. Is he Aegon like Aegon the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th? Is there a number with him?
I believe he would be the 5th. He is the grandfather. No, is he the great grandfather of
for Daenerys?
Daenerys, I think so. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know, man, anymore.
So many Aegons, George. What are you doing?
Yeah, but like he is the egg that Maester Aemon refers to when he's in his dying bed in season 5 of Game of Thrones, I want to say. Book 5 also for the books. But yeah, it would be that Aegon.
Well, it's funny. There was like a Maester callback somewhere in this episode. I forget who was talking, but it was like,
they name him, but not by actual name. They just refer to him about like, then there's the useless son who is at the Citadel or whatever, like starting to be a Maester. I'm like, I don't know if useless it's a good term to say it, but
useless is crazy. But he was sent there that early, Master Aemon?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That's crazy. Your whole life there. It's like 80-something years that freaking ice and cold in the wall. That's not great, Bob. Before we get started, actually, I wanted to tell you, how do you feel about the news about the animated Sea Snake show with Tartakovsky? I kind of knew about the Sea Snake show in general, but like I didn't know if we knew it was animated, and especially with Tartakovsky, the Samurai Jack and Primal
Yeah,
God.
it makes sense. I mean, there was rumors of like maybe like an animated one about Robert's Rebellion or other points in
Mm.
history in Westeros. Um, I'm into it. I feel like it would be pretty fitting for to do this in animation, also because I'm assuming it's just Warner Brothers right now, this current regime trying to save money.
Yeah.
But like again, like I don't have that bias that a lot of people have against animation. I think, I mean, it's the fucking guy who did Samurai Jack. So doing that style in Westeros with the sea snake of all characters and his voyages, why not?
It sounds super exciting, and especially yeah, given what we know about like the live action sea snake actor, he's like pretty older. Like it just wouldn't work like long term. But I'm
Yeah,
telling you, Game of Thrones animation go hand in hand. There's so many cool things. If we actually wanted to do Blackfire Rebellion, finally, we could do that in animation. If they ever wanted to do Robert's Rebellion, we could do that in animation because it's so hard to get like the now the older live action crew playing a younger version of themselves. Like, do all
yeah,
the shit that's difficult now because of like actors and schedules. Do all that shit in animation, guys, and I'm telling you, it will be peak. I need more, universes and IP to dive into animation.
yeah.
Um,
Also, at this point in the current state of live action television, it would probably take about the same time to do animated than live action. So might as well save yourself a couple bucks.
you're that's a great point. Animation takes a long time, even in regards to like TV shows. Yeah, this ain't ever going to be like the pit. Every year, unless Ira Parker was also talking about 97 Kingdoms wanting to do it like yearly, consecutively.
Every 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be very funny. We'll be doing this podcast tour 80, tour 90. Let's go.
I'm gonna see the burning of Summerhole when I'm fucking 60.
That'd be funny. That's also something I know through osmosis as well. We'll
Yeah,
talk
and
about that.
actually that's gonna come up because they do kind of mention it later on in the episode. So
Exactly. But this episode, overall, I really like this episode. Once again, probably my favorite episode now. This season just gets better and better overall. And what
yeah,
made this episode so special was that the reveal was great. But what made the reveal even more impactful was this episode is really from the perspective of Egg. We got a lot of Egg this episode.
finally
Really,
will be changed. Yeah,
exactly. And Egg is so much, he's dreaming of being a squire. A lot of this was just like him wanting to be like a normal squire, wanting to be a real like knight, having dreams for the future. And then all his own like dreams come crashing down when he has to reveal himself. It's like, oh crap, now like can he still be this person that he dreamed of being with Dunk? Now that the cat's out of the bag, like can that change things for his own future? We'll have to wait and see. But I really like the Egg perspective this episode.
yeah. I really enjoy that. Like I mentioned in our group chat that almost like Princess Bride, like 80s fantasy vibe between him and Thunder, like training the horse, just like nodding and like be like shaking his head whenever like they were like having like the back and forth conversation. Really sweet. And again, like going to what you were saying about him wanting to be a squire in this point in history right now for this particular Targaryen family, Egg is like he couldn't be any farther from the succession line. So he actually has the benefit of just wanting to be a kid and wanting to explore things that don't require as much responsibility as his uncle Baylor and his sons.
Mhm.
So I think like it says a lot about the character of Egg that his biggest aspiration is just to be a squire right now in that moment, and just him training and kind of like demonstrating what he's capable, not just only to Dunk but also to the other knight that eventually shows up and asks about if he robbed the horse or not.
Yeah.
Um, very very sweet, and it's even sweeter when he goes back to the camp and Doug is like sewing something, and the episode never fully puts you in Dunk's perspective when that scene happens, but like
Yeah.
you can almost tell that like through his eyes he was almost like afraid that Egg had like betrayed him and had like taken the horse and his stuff with them and just like ran away. And just like seeing Egg come back to the camp and like again the show doesn't really like put a lot of emphasis, but like you can just tell that this guy is like attached to this kid already as a little brother, and he would have been hurt if he would have led, which then connects to the end of the episode of like of Egg actually hurting Dunk
I
because of all the
know.
lies. So
It's
again, all of it is really it's really good. It's really good.
it all compounds together so well. It's a lot of great scaffolding in this episode. But yeah, I think what was so special was like I totally noticed that as well when he comes back and Dunk's like, "Where'd you go? Next time you leave, you better tell me." He's like, "Okay, cool." And then you think he's gonna get like quote unquote like punished or whatever. He was like, "So." He was like, "I'm sewing." Like, "Do you need help with sewing?" He's like, "No, not really. Actually, come over here. Let me help you out here." Like, it's like like Dunk can't resist
It's
Egg, and like seeing them like sew together, Egg learning how to sew with him was very special.
yeah, it's the good in Dunk that we've been talking about for these past 3 weeks. Like in that moment
Hmm.
when he is telling him to go brush the horses and to like basically kind of like fuck off without actually saying it. It's almost like him
Yeah,
trying to put on a mask and put it on a face of like I'm trying to be like Sir Arlen of like whenever he would get mad at me, but like he can't even get himself to that level because again like he's gotten really attached to Egg. So
yeah.
it says a lot about Duncan as a character, and it says a lot about Egg that where they are in the relationship at this point.
For sure, we've gotten a lot of great Dunk and Egg moments this whole last 3 episodes, but this episode in particular had a lot of like genuinely funny moments between them that really worked for me. But yeah, going back, who was the guy with the eye patch that we saw talking to Thunder and Egg when he walked up? That was also another cool use of the flashback as well. When Egg was like, "Oh yeah, I remember you," and like cut to jousting, boom, and the eye like
It,
ah,
it's very like slapstick, like officey
yeah,
type of stuff. That would be Robin Wrestling.
wrestling.
He's
Okay,
he is basically from I don't know if you could tell, but he's like very devoted to like the face, and he's like talking about like oh the warrior. If he like, I forget what exactly the quote that he says to Egg, but basically saying how devoted he is to that. Um, Nice introduction. He'll be back eventually down in the next couple episodes to
I had a
play.
feeling.
Yeah, not a significant role, but a good enough role, I think.
I had a feeling. I wrote him down. It was very funny. I'll talk about it when we get to like the next week on stuff that we saw in the preview for this Friday's episode. By the way, like this won't be on Sunday because of the Super Bowl. It'll be on Friday because it'll be on Friday. Then it'll air again during the Super Bowl. But we'll still be back Monday to talk about everything. Um, can't wait to see what goes down next week or this week. But yeah, I love seeing that. I wrote him down because he seemed very important. But yeah, also that egg in the sandwich scene. Oh my god, that shit looked
Yeah,
really good.
did you get Birds of Prey vibes with Margot Robbie?
The classic egg sandwich from Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
That shit looked really good. The egg, the ham. I'm like, dang, okay, they living the good life right now. Okay.
That piece of loaf, that bread was maybe a little bit too thick for my taste, but it still looked good.
Too much bread. The ratio is not just right, but it worked out. It looked really good.
I wonder if they added the salt beef to it.
Yeah, Dunk loves his salted beef. Um, but I also love, the crazy pubic hair question from Egg. It's like they're getting very vulnerable, very personal with each other, which is just very funny. Um, I love them together. Also, the whole Baylor Blackfire song was very funny. Um,
Yeah.
just more Blackfire mentions.
More references to the Blackfire Rebellion, yeah. And I also like again going what we've been saying about Egg almost being like the adult in the relationship of telling Dunk like, oh, you can't even compete today. Like, how did you not know that? Only the noble sons or whatever, noble men can do that today. Then you'll be able to join tomorrow.
That was a good point because all throughout like him sewing and Egg coming back to camp, like we got a sense that like Dunk was like really nervous. Like he's looking down, he's not like as happy. But then yeah, he tells him that he's like, oh wait, why have I been nervous the whole morning? Then I was like, oh shit. But yeah, Egg knowing a lot more than he should. But yeah, apparently a lot of the like is it highborns, right? All just basically all the nobles
Highborns, yeah.
they get the first day stuff. which clears Dunk for the day. But it doesn't stop them from actually going to the tournament, right? Um, where they watched the first joust with the. I have my notes here. The Humphreys. Did I get the name right?
I think so. And
One of the
Ashford.
Humphreys. Yeah, at Ashford fighting. Um, a lot goes down to you with the eventual plan that Dunk gets requested for. But yeah, I think it was important to get another joust here for the first day to contrast us with like how bad a joust can go when Aerion comes into play. Like this is a decent joust, crazy. Oh, somebody fell off the horse. Okay, you win. Blah 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 blah.
Moving on. Yeah.
Moving on, and then we get the Aerion one, which is like, oh, this is a dishonorable joust. This is how we're not supposed to do it. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, we'll meet the Humphreys. Are they important too? The guy who won here, is he important? Maybe not.
I forget.
Okay, I'm trying to remember all these names. But afterwards, I love seeing them echo each other's words too when they were playing or when they were in the crowd.
Oh yeah, like mimicking each other. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're like big brother behavior. I love it. So good. And then I think one of my favorite parts of this episode here is when a beautiful shot when they're overlooking the tournament, the village, the tourney at Ashford in general. And Egg starts like not reminiscing, but like dreaming of like accolades and things that could happen if they were to win. Egg's talking about like getting a big patch of land, working for a lord or whatever, and marrying the second most beautiful daughter, which is very sweet. And then Dunk's like, second most? What do you mean? He's like, oh, because you'll have like the first, you have the eldest daughter. I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, this is just like, even in their dreams, are already envisioning like them sticking together for the long haul, for a long time, which is just incredibly sweet moment.
Yeah. And again, like it goes to how Egg has been raised of kind of. I mean, we can just talk about it now because we know the reveal. We know who he is. He's a Targaryen. The journey that Aegon has throughout these novellas, it really is kind of sort of a King Arthur type of arc, in the sense of the king who was raised amongst the smoke folk, the common people. And you really see that through the dreams that he has for himself, again, of being a squire, working with Duncan all the way until like adulthood, and the fact that he puts Duncan first before himself, of like, oh, obviously you would have the first most beautiful daughter because you would be you're like, I am serving you. Again, it says a lot about Egg, and that dynamic, again, it's really sweet, and it just adds to the betrayal later on in the episode.
For sure. And one of the things I noticed, I wasn't going to mention it last week, but we got it now with Egg's reveal of, being Aegon. Like, how does Egg's, now that he has to go back, not go back, but just like, now that the cat's out of the bag, they know he's Aegon, how is his position as a Targaryen in the family going to be changed now? Because he's, as you said, living with the small folk. And in this episode, it did another good job of reiterating how the Targaryens have had a, suffice to say, messy relationship with the small folk. As we'll get into the conversation later on with Duncan's friend, talking about like they're incestuous aliens, all the bad things Targaryens have done. How is Dunk's time with the small folk in this season and beyond going to change things for the realm, for the better? You never know. So it's very interesting just talking about the Targaryens and the small folk and that relationship and how Egg's kind of right in the middle. It's very interesting.
When does the scene happen when they get like the prophecies read to them? Is that before or after that scene?
That's later on. Yeah, that's later on. I think that's after. What's it called? That's after the Lionel party.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so yeah, this part is very interesting. So they're talking about marrying, second most beautiful daughter. On the way back to camp, Dunk comes across, I don't know who's it, but this like the game master's squire. Oh, it was the game master himself.
Yeah, it was the game master.
Okay, cool. I haven't seen him outside the office. So I was like, who is this guy again? So the game master himself comes up to Duncan. So let's try and break this down. This new scheme that's getting positioned, pushed to Dunk. It seems like Lord Ashford, in all his ways, the head of the tourney at Ashford, has overspent on the tournament, and he needs some extra money. Like get some money back. These tournaments, they be expensive. So because he overspent on the tournament, he has to fix certain matches so he can get money. So what he seems to have been doing is making the Ashford jouster, I forget his name,
His son,
make him
yeah.
make him see his son, make him seem very like winnable. Like he's like high on odds to win. We saw in the first joust against the Humphreys. The Humphrey guy falls, the Ashford guy wins. But now they want to push towards Dunk. Hey, we want you to win. We don't want you to fall. We want you to win, Dunk. But the other guy against you, the son of Ashford, is going to take the L. He's going to fall on purpose. That way, when we bet on you, the person who's not likely to win, they can get more money, just like in terms of betting. Like if you bet on the person that's less likely to win, you get more money at the end because there's less people doing it. So that's kind of the main scheme for the Ashford. They want to bet on Dunk. They don't want him to lose. Hey, you're still going to win. As they tell him, hey, you get all the rewards. This is a win-win-win-win-win situation for you, Dunk. What's the problem with this? Jalen and I were like, shit, like, okay, cool. I'll take this in a second. But that's not how Dunk is. This guy is very honorable. So his reaction, he doesn't flat out say no to this, but his reaction kind of says it all.
Yeah, I like this for a variety of reasons. But the main one for me is this offer is basically kind of like the devil tempting you with something that you really want, which in this case would be, money and all the glory, which is something that he's already aspiring for with this tourney. So him taking the deal and eventually winning would be doing what he wants to do, but it would be doing it like dirty, right? Yeah. But I like that because he does consider it, and even when he's like talking to Raymond Fossaway in the tent before all the chaos happens with Aerion and the puppeteers, you can tell that he's still considering it, and it isn't until that entire ordeal happens with Aerion at the end that he almost kind of like snaps out of it, and the noble guy, the noble knight, kind of like comes back into reality. And what happens later on. So, I mean, personally, I don't know what that says about me, but I would take the deal.
I would take the deal in a second because, like, this isn't like I automatically thought of like Daredevil and Matt's dad in the Daredevil show. Like, he died because he was supposed to take the L and not win the fight, but his pride took over and he won the fight, and then the gangsters killed Daredevil's dad. Spoiler alert. But now here it's just like, okay, you can still win. You're not losing the joust. You are winning and taking the reward. You're not losing and taking the reward. But either way, like, your pride possibly is going to go down, and then of course, as you mentioned, Dunk's honor takes a bit of a hit. But yeah, it's important. We got the scene right after Dunk was talking about, like, dreams and rewards and aspirations with Egg just a scene prior on the hill. So, like, he has been thinking about these things, and the last 2 episodes have told us if you lose this fight, you're screwed because you don't have like enough things to like barter or sell or ransom in this case. So it's like losing is not an option for Dunk, and this is a surefire option to not lose. So why don't you take this deal?
Yeah, and he would also make a name for himself by unhorsing the son of Ashford, of Lord Ashford. So
exactly. Did he get a cool nickname? Dunk the Bone Breaker.
The Bone Breaker. And then this scene leads us into the joust between Aerion and the other ones, which we have here a question from Brian. I'm assuming you're talking about the guy that Aerion defeats. I'm pretty sure that he's alive in the show. I know for a fact that in the book he does get the horse. He does the same thing happens in the book. I believe it's they kind of like do like a throwaway line in the show where they say where they maybe mention that, oh yeah, like they're gonna give uh Aerion's horse to the guy. But that's what happens in the books
Oh,
basically. Because like they feel so bad that because he did broke the rules. Arion
yeah.
broke the rules. Like that's not how jousting works.
No.
So they basically punish Arion, but by giving his horse to the other guy.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing that Raymond later says to Duncan in that tent scene at the end is the fact that Arion always pretends to be the good son whenever Makar is around, but whenever he's not, his true self always comes out, and that's like very prominent in the book. And then again, the show kind of like gives like kind of like a throwaway line, but it's still there.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Yeah, that's funny because yeah, that's very rich kid coded. Whenever father's not around, I'm gonna start acting like a dick. But then when he is around, it's like, oh, hey, I'm cool. I'm acting all cool.
Yeah,
So yeah, Makar was out looking for Aegon, Egg, and Darien possibly
Daron, yeah.
Darren. So yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, this whole Arion craziness was just funny,
Very
wild.
succession coded.
Yeah, very Succession coded. It's like this episode, man. He would fit right into Succession. It
Yeah,
was
there's a
cute.
couple things happening here leading up to the eventual fight. First of all, obviously we have the egg factor of him like still wanting to see but hiding from everybody else, everybody
Yep.
from his family. Then there's the factor of when Arion comes in and kind of pays his respects to his uncle, and and Baylor is just like so over it, like I don't care about
He's
this.
like, yeah.
Again, very Logan Roy coded. Um, and then there's something else that I find very fascinating that again the show doesn't really pay much attention to it, and neither does do the books really, but it's there if you want to read it like that. It's the fact that one of the reasons why the Blackfire Rebellion happened is because Targaryen started to marry off to the Martells, and eventually, as we see with Baelor, some of the Targaryens stopped looking like Targaryens. They no longer have the silver hair. Some of them don't no longer have the purple eyes, which was
Mhm.
never a thing in the shows. Um, so for me, I read the whole thing of him like parading himself before choosing a knight to go against with. The fact that he goes to Valar first, which is his cousin,
That was
and,
interesting.
not yeah, it's interesting because he is the heir of the heir to the throne.
Mhm.
Um, but it's interesting from that perspective of the whole looks of the Targaryens, the fact that Aerion does look like a proper Targaryen. And he's kind of like looking down at his cousin and kind of like almost also like mocking Baylor by like doing all of that stuff. Almost maybe in the sense of that he thinks that he's better because he actually does look like a dragon. And one of the factors of his madness as a Targaryen is the fact that he genuinely believes that he is a dragon, that he just needs to awake the dragon, kind of like Viserys in Game of Thrones season 1.
Yeah.
So there's like those little like I don't know how you would call it like um like dicks at his own members of the family that don't look like proper Targaryens that he's doing before even chaos erupts once he kills that horse and all of that happens.
Yeah, he's embodying the Targaryen lineage to a realistic and frightening degree because, like, his armor looks very much like in the cadence of an actual dragon. It's really, really cool armor. I'm not gonna lie. Even though, as much as I hate the guy, really cool armor. The armor looks like a dragon. The horse looks like a dragon. But yeah, when he walks up to Valar, he's like, "I won't embarrass you." It's like he knew what he was going to do. So was he just saying that on purpose? Like, "I won't embarrass you." Cut to, "I'm gonna embarrass the hell out of this whole family." Like, what what did Arian expect like what happened to happen? Like the town hates you now. Like, are you fine with that? Because you know you're a Targaryen, it doesn't really matter. It was just a very weird move.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it comes from a place of, again, in this point of history, none of the Targaryens have dragons. They need to demonstrate like dominance in somehow, and maybe he thinks that just by scaring off people, that's one way to do it. But like, okay, here's what's with the whole situation that happens and the chaos that erupts with the small folk kind of like throwing rocks at him.
Yeah.
That would never happen, even if the exact same thing were to happen, and it did happen in House of the Dragon with Daemon in the first episode.
Yeah,
Nobody would have had the audacity to do what the Smallfolk did if Aerion had a dragon.
that's a great point. That's a
and-
great point.
And again, it just goes to show just how vulnerable the house is and how in peril he's putting it in by just wanting to be a dick just for the fuck of it.
That's
so,
interesting because like part of me was like, okay, the Targaryens again, they came here because they need to show dominance and just like keep in touch with the small folk. You know, they need to show legitimacy, power, but also again, just keeping in touch. You know, being there for the small folk, entertaining the small folk. But they also have to show honor at the same time. So I was confused about like why you just like not you're skipping the entire honor part. The reason you came here in the first place, Aerion. But that's a great point about like, hey, if there was a dragon perched up on the hill watching the entire thing go down, kind of like you saw Daemon's dragon with the long neck like looming over, I'm not throwing that rock because I'm gonna get burnt to a crisp. That's an excellent point because like, oh shit, like that would never happen. Times have changed because one of those rocks could have like really hurt Aerion if he didn't have like the helmet on because it hit his helmet and it goes down a little bit. I'm like, if somebody hit him in the eye, like that's crazy to a prospective prince, king of the realm. Like this is crazy.
Yeah.
Times have changed.
Yeah, and another fun fact about the whole accident with the horse, we see this happening basically the exact same way in episode 1 of House of the Dragon season 1. That never, if I'm correct, that never happens in Fire and Blood. They just kind of gave that accident to Daemon just to make him a little bit more douchey in the show.
Yeah.
So that's why I was wondering. I think it was like last week or the week before when I was talking about like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna do this certain thing that they already gave to Daemon to Aerion because they already kind of adapted it. But I'm glad that they still did it because again, even though I don't necessarily think it was necessary for them to do it in House of the Dragon with Daemon, it does kind of like show this like almost like echoes in history of like kind of like repeating itself of how all of these guys from this family act every once in a while. But again, there's two different examples. One doesn't get punished. If anything, he just wins the joust and gets to crown like somebody as like the what is it called, like the Lady of Flower and Beauty or something like that.
Sure,
yeah. So one gets rewarded for it, and this guy just gets punished. But again, it's just where they are right now in history.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's incredibly interesting. Aerion's not good, but yeah, as we mentioned, he wounds the horse of his opponent. Horse falls on his leg. It's like, ooh, this is just not great. It's a very shameful act. And afterwards, I like how everybody's upset. Baylor was like, "Oh my god." Afterwards, Dunk was like, "Oh wow, that's crazy. That horse, it just so
terrible
happened."
Accident.
Terrible accident. Like, yeah, come on, Dunk. This is a layup. It acts like he was like on the verge of tears. He was very angry. Like that was not an accident. Like that, that was on purpose. Come on. So Egg immediately clocks it, as does 99% of everybody else. But yeah, Dunk didn't, which speaks to Dunk.
Yeah, and it tells you a lot when Egg, as the little brother of Aerion, wants to see his own brother die. It just tells you a lot about that, about him as a character, of who he is, of how cruel he can be. And like, there's some really cruel things that Aerion tries to do to Egg prior to all of this series of events. That I wonder if they'll touch on them like maybe next week. Probably I'm sure they will. But
flashback.
I don't think they'll go that far, but maybe just in conversation between Egg and Duncan, because he does talk about it, about why he hates his brother.
Remember when I put you in the toilet?
It's worse than that.
Oh no. Oh boy, why do people hate each other so much? The Targaryens, one thing you're gonna do is like hate your own members of your family,
or wanna sleep with their sister.
Of course, yeah, one and the same. So yeah, then we get a fun. It's not an episode of A Night of Seven Kingdoms if we don't get a Lionel party. Nothing much of too importance happens here, but something of substance that I liked here. where they're talking about Alice Three Fingers and talking about all this like weird craziness. But something that was genuinely interesting was that like Ed was talking about like, hey, they remember, Alice Three Fingers. I wonder if she like even had a name. It just goes to show for me, maybe I'm thinking too deeply about it, but like, Egg wants to leave a mark possibly as well. Like, probably not as, weird as Alice Three Fingers, but like, leave a name for himself that isn't really tied to the Targaryen family, something he's trying to disappear from. Maybe Egg in the future or Dunk can get a name sung in song at a random party eventually down the line because of their own exploits. Again, not related to the Targaryen family.
Yeah. That way of reading it is definitely valid. Another way that I also kind of like read that entire sequence with the Alice song is I think you're right. Egg says like, "Oh, do you even think that was her real name?" And Duncan is kind of like, "Well, does it really matter?" And it's something that is very common, not just in our history, but also like within like the history of Westeros, of all of these like mythic figures who we look up to, who we don't even know if the real name was the name that people keep telling each other, like the whole thing with the prince who was promised, or even the puppeteer show that Tencel is putting with the Florian the Fool. Is like, it's all just like stories that we keep telling each other it's like a game of telephone to a point where some of the message kind of gets lost, but the story still lives on, type of thing.
Good point. Exactly. So yeah, always good to see Lionel. It was funny watching the behind the scenes and the actor talking about like how he doesn't want to cuss as much in front of Egg, but he has to because of the show. And Dexter, who plays Egg, doesn't mind at all. And then cut to Dexter. I hate cussing. I really do. It's just my job.
Sorry, me at my job every day.
It's amazing. Like I love the Dexter actor. Is just pitch perfect. He never watched Game of Thrones. Didn't know what a Targaryen was. So like when he read the script, he was like, I guess this is a big deal. His parents had to tell him how big of a deal it was that he's a Targaryen. It was just so sweet and cute. I really liked it. Coming in the show again, not everybody has to read novellas and read books to understand to be good at their job, guys. People hate on House of the Dragon, like so and so didn't read the books and didn't read Fire and Blood, and it's like, come on, doesn't matter. But anyways, let's see here, and this is where we come across the seer. I didn't get exactly what she says. She's talking about first before Egg. She says how Dunk will be rich. This, I guess that kind of makes sense.
As rich as a Lannister or something like that. I forget the exact quote.
As rich as a Lannister. But now, does this mean rich in terms of like money, or rich as in like, hey, you're rich in, other things like, hey, companionship, right? Yeah, like you always want to think like, you don't want to think too literally when it comes to these, like seers or whatever they're called. Because they're usually right, but not in ways that you expect. It's kind of like the Percy Jackson thing. The prophecies are usually right, but not in the way you expect. So it just was interesting. Dunk's like, okay, Rich, I can work with that, sure. He doesn't really take her seriously too much. In contrast to when she talked about Egg / Aegon, she says, "You will be king someday, and die in a fire." And the citizens will rejoice.
And your people will rejoice, something like that.
Yeah. I'm like, that sounds not good. If I heard that from Aegon, if I'm Aegon, I'm like, wait, remix. Why does he get riches and I get die in a fire and people are happy that I died? Like, what's going on here? This one I couldn't really parse together in a positive spin. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I guess spoiler alert for the next minute or so for the books or whatever.
Spoiler alert!
Thank you, Patrick. So yeah, many years later after this, once Egg is an adult and he has children of his own, and basically the Targaryens kind of have like a vacation home in Summerhole. That's what Summerhole is. Basically their vacation home. And we don't really get a lot of context because in good old George R. Martin fashion, he hasn't finished some certain things, whether it is in Fire and Blood or the Dunk novellas. But that's something that I like about some of these shows, like A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and House of the Dragon. Even though he might have created differences with the creators, there's still stuff that he has given to them that he can kind of like let go. Like the whole thing about Aegon's prophecy in House of the Dragon, it's not something that Ryan Condal came up with. It's something that has been living in George's mind for a while, and it's finally book canon and it's also show canon now. So since that, the whole prophecy circle thing of passing down from heir to from king to heir, um a lot of people have been wondering whether or not the whole thing about the accident of Summerhall, if it was purposeful, if it was kind of like not necessarily Aegon going mad, but him trying to hatch dragons from their eggs from stones, kind of like what Daenerys does essentially in at the end of season 1 of Game of Thrones. But obviously, in the case of Summerhall, it goes terribly wrong. Um, a lot of people, a lot of members of House Targaryen die, including Egg. And one key thing about this is, and again, spoilers. Um, it goes to show the impact that little decisions throughout the history have later on, like the fact that Duncan himself becomes so attached to Egg, and to the point that whenever Egg does become king, he becomes the head of the Kingsguard, of his Kingsguard. He's like the main guy. And as the accident happens, his very last act of knighthood, of as a member of the Kingsguard, is saving Rhaella, which is Daenerys' mother. And he dies doing that, essentially.
Wow.
So again, like it's I love little moments like this, because this is not in the books at all. The prophecy that I guess you want to call it witch or whatever gives to Egg in this episode, but it's the way that these characters perceive prophecy, and sometimes how it's like a double-edged sword of all of these people kind of thinking that they're the ones who are going to have to deal with the threat of the Night King and the White Walkers and all of that, and kind of like dooming themselves by trying to fulfill a prophecy, kind of like something that we talk about a lot within our friend group with like the Last Jedi, of like Luke trying to stop something from happening by wanting to stop it, and he creates it with Kylo Ren and all of that stuff. So Egg maybe trying to like hatch dragons and bring the Targaryen dynasty back to where it was. That is kind of like paranoia or like fear might like maybe this is not like the main reason, but it's like a catalyst to that, of him having that in the back of his mind of like, oh, I'm gonna become king, but I'm gonna die doing something. Am I gonna die bringing dragons back from the dead? Essentially, I don't know, but again, like that's one of the things where like we don't know because we don't have a lot of the context, but we just have the pieces so far.
That's so fascinating. That's incredibly fascinating. Is that Dunk story where he sacrifices his life? Is that in the novellas, or is that in a separate book?
Well, we just know it from like history books, essentially.
Okay,
like the World of Ice and Fire, which is supposed to be like a in-universe history book in Westeros, that the Maesters wrote. So that's like basically the last couple pages of Duncan's part in the Kingsguard history. You know how they have like the white book and they record all the great deeds that they've done. Like it's kind of like that, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. That's really, really cool. Is that United States Kingdom season 10, season 20?
Season 20. That's why I was saying like, well, like, hey, I'm gonna see the burning of Summerhall when I'm 60. This is gonna have a very depressing ending to the show.
Yeah, that's not a huge spoiler, but that's very interesting. That's very cool. I really like that. Again, greatness from small beginnings in this show. But yeah, so then afterwards, after that conversation with the seer, Dunk visits Fossilway. I keep putting Fossilway. I don't know his first name.
It's Raymond, I think.
Raymond Fossilway, which is the good cousin, right?
Yeah, the good cousin. The other one is shit. I'm blanking on it. It'll come back.
Briss. No. But yeah, this basically goes into Dunk, Raymond going on a rant against Targaryens. They're incestuous aliens, Dunk. Which again goes into the whole notion of the Targaryens supposed to have they've fallen so far from public perception, and Raymond is kind of like the embodiment of like the citizens' ill will towards Targaryens during this point in history. Talking about they've pushed us into wars of their own. The Blackfire Rebellion, the Dance of the Dragons with House of the Dragon. All these stuff. They burned our land. They killed a lot of us, thousands, millions of us, because of their own wars. So they're not really great. Of course, the incest part is widely known as well. So it just goes on top of like what happened earlier that day with Aerion being a dishonorable dick. So it's very interesting, this whole perspective.
Yeah. One of the many reasons why I love just this entire universe and this story, it's what like it tries to tackle thematically. And obviously with Game of Thrones, and this is true for House of the Dragon and all of the shows that we've seen so far, but it's mainly true for like Game of Thrones. It's like A is the obvious point of view of how power corrupts the soul. Then there's the second point of being like the older generation leaving like a broken world for their children to fix, with characters like Daenerys, Jon Snow, all of them.
Yeah.
And then the third point, at least for me, particular to relating to House Targaryen, is like this like great Shakespearean tragedy, if you really think about it. Of they came to Westeros fleeing like the destruction of Valyria. They just hang out here for a couple years. Eventually Aegon gets the prophecy that he gets, and he kind of becomes paranoid and decides to take the Seven Kingdoms. But I say Shakespearean tragedy because he doesn't do it out of malice. He doesn't do it out of ambition or greed or any of those things. He does it because he thinks that's the only way that he can get all of these people together, to band together against this common enemy. And every Targaryen reign since then has been them trying to maintain that power, even if it makes them look bad. It makes them look like tyrants. And I'm not saying that some of the worst Targaryens are like, justified for doing the things that they do, because obviously not.
No.
But there is, again, like this like Shakespearean tragedy of these people started doing what they did because they were actually trying to fucking save you. They wanted to save the world, and they still want to save the world all the way up to where we are right now with Daenerys in the books. But that's not how they're perceived, because they have to live with this secret that they can't share, because if they share it, then they will truly look like they're actually insane.
And it's such a human story, right? Because they're driven by fear, but it's also like a game of telephone. What says like the next king who hears a prophecy isn't going to be like, okay, whatever. Like that can change the course of history, because like they don't really take part in it, but then they tell the next person who might heed it more than the last, and then somebody else who doesn't really care. Like a lot of this stuff, like the king and stuff like that, like it's really fascinating. Like does at this point in time, does the king of Westeros, is it Darien the Good or whatever? I don't know his name.
Yeah.
Like he has to have known the prophecy by now, right? But like, what is he doing at this point in time?
The interesting thing is that, we don't know because we haven't seen how it plays out in the show, but a lot of people believe that the secret from king to heir kind of dies during the Dance with the Dragons.
Okay.
Given what happens at the end with how that entire storyline ends. So the belief is that secret kind of gets lost, and Targaryens just do whatever the hell they want to do with their reigns, up until Robert's Rebellion, where, at least in the book, not so much the show, of one of the reasons, like there's like a line, I forgot which book in particular it is, but it says something like Rhaegar, which is Daenerys' older brother. He used to be like a very book smart type of kid. He wasn't really interested in fighting or being a warrior at night, any of those things. But it wasn't until he read something somewhere in a scroll that he eventually was like, okay, I need to lock in and I need to train because I need to become a warrior. But like nobody knows why. So the belief is that him and Aemon, maybe Maester Aemon, discovered something. They discovered this big secret, which is the Aegon's prophecy, and that's why eventually Rhaegar went on the path that he went of like trying
Wow.
to fulfill the prophecy, trying to have 3 children like Aegon and like his sisters, like somebody like that he could like marry them together.
R
Which
plus L plus J.
yeah, which eventually leads to the whole thing about that with Jon Snow. So again, it's like that game of telephone. It gets lost and then it gets rediscovered. Um,
Fascinating.
and another point of that is interesting about the whole Raymond thing and like how he talks about the Targaryens, and it's true to be fair, is the fact that they keep practicing incest even though they don't have to. They did it because they wanted to keep the Targaryen blood pure so they could have control of the dragons. There's no more dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never really thought too deeply about that. But yeah, the dragons die off like 200 years before Game of Thrones, but yeah, they're still practicing this incest shit, which is just very funny. It's like, well, why not? I mean, yeah. But you said Darren, the king right now, is married to a Martell. So maybe that, but that doesn't really change much. So yeah, very, very, very interesting. But then of course, Tanzel's doing her play around the same time as this, kills a dragon in her play. I couldn't tell you what the play was about in general, but all we know is that Tanzel kills the dragon, and Aerion watching this, like, feeling personally affected by this. The only one in the crowd, Aerion's like, yeah, this is cool. Aerion's like scowling, like he got stabbed in the heart. Like he's like an actual, like, dude, it's like the Toy Story meme where it's like, you are a toy. And it's kind of like somebody shaking Aerion, like, you are not a dragon. Relax. But he takes it personally. Like he's a dragon. And we cut to Egg, like, screaming for Dunk to come over. Dunk arrives, and Aerion's in the middle of breaking Tanzel's fingers. And he's like, okay, this is not good. And Dunk goes demon mode, demon time, and grabs Aerion and just flings him down on the floor like a sack of potatoes. It was hilarious. He lands a good punch on him too before the guards really come in there. This scene was crazy.
It's really well shot. That dolly of like the camera sweeping inside the tent is really cool.
Yeah, so cool. So yeah, Dunk throws Aerion on the ground. The guards grab Dunk, and I was like, oh shit! Like, I told Jill, I was like, he's not gonna arrest Dunk. He's getting ready to kill his ass. Like Dunk is getting ready to die. They put his head on the ground too. I was like, oh shit. But then Egg comes in, and that's when he tells the whole reveal. And I love the way it's orchestrated too, because Egg just comes in like, hey, like, don't do it. Unveils himself, and then Aerion's just like, what's wrong with your hair? Like
this fucking guy. Yeah.
It becomes so casual in the middle of all this chaos, like a little small family squabble amidst all this craziness. I loved everything about it.
Yeah. I really like how this is edited. Like that, once the reveal happens, and with the music cues, it's like kind of like, again, like this like Succession type of thing, where like you see like everybody's reaction of like, what the hell is happening here?
Dun,
but like
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun. Yeah. But then there's that like look of just like pure betrayal from Duncan. I again, like, you really do feel for these characters. They are the heart and soul of this show, of this story. And I love that line that Egg says of like, oh, like, what happened to your hair? And he goes like, oh, I cut it off. I didn't want to look like you, brother. And again, we'll learn why that maybe next week. But again, I think all of this, the way that it's shot, the way that it's like the build up from like, them being outside, witnessing the joust go wrong, going their separate ways, and eventually coming back for this very horrific moment. It just flows really well. And this show has like, we've been talking about it a lot throughout these weeks, but man, like it really does remind me like Barry, of the sense of like there's just so much packed into a single 30-minute episode. And to the point that I feel like sometimes this show has a better, even though like it's still like relatively small scale, it has like a better
pacing. Not
only pacing, but a better handle of all the storylines that are happening at once than like something like maybe House of the Dragon, which something could be like very overwhelming.
Yeah, overwhelming. Yeah, check out our season 2 review, which I think I like season 2 more than most. But the back half of season 2, it was juggling a lot and not giving a lot to certain storylines. They were just like checking in rather than like giving us actual depth with each scene. But yeah, everything was great here, man. Again, I assume Dunks can get over this in the span of an episode, hopefully. But can we talk about the next time on? Because what was so fascinating was that, like, Dunk seems to be in some kind of prison. X there in his like Targaryen black uniform with a red sash, which is really cool. He's like, I couldn't tell you. Dunk's like, you lied to me. But like, what was so funny, Makar talks about like there's going to be a trial of 7. And Makar was like, what the hell is a trial of 7?
That's like so unrealistic. Like I get I mean, we haven't seen how they place in context, but everybody knows what a trial of 7 is, and the only reason why they're like making him look dumber than he is in the show is because
the audience.
Yeah, not only that, but also they want to sell this idea that he is like the lesser brother of the main 2 that we see in this season. Like,
he doesn't read the books.
He doesn't read the books, and while Baylor is like the book smart type of thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you talked about this, or I don't know who. But trial of 7. So that kind of like Dunk's punishment, like he has to participate in trial of 7 to get out of this.
Yeah. We'll dive into it next week, but eventually what happens is that they want to have a trial by combat, but Aerion, being the sneaky person that he is, he's like, I'm pretty sure I won't have a chance against this guy, so let's do it. Let's do a trial by 7 type of thing, of like 7 nights against 7
Got
nights.
it. Okay. Yeah, I can't do this one-on-one. That's funny as hell. But yeah, so yeah, then like, where's Dunk gonna get 6 other people to die on the sword for him against the Targaryen army?
Yeah, I'm assuming episode, what is it, 4 is gonna be, him confronting Egg about the lies, him confronting the family about what happened, them deciding what's gonna transpire after that, like the whole trial of the 7. So I'm assuming that's gonna be like a great part of episode 4. So if I were to guess, I would say episode 5 will focus mostly on kind of like a video game type of style of like Duncan kind of like going through the camp, like trying to recruit people through his side. Yeah, and then eventually episode 6 will be like the grand finale with the actual combat.
Put on the suit of armor, get the jousting. That's very, very, very exciting. I can't wait. It's only 6 episodes. The pacing has been really, really good. I'm having a blast with this show, and hopefully after this episode, regular audiences who again might not have been prepared for this kind of 25-30 minute episode with this kind of like slow pace, hopefully they start enjoying it more. But I'm having a blast with this show, man. It's really, really good so far.
Yeah, I do wonder if the whole egg thing, and maybe if it gets traction on social media, if it'll get more people to watch it, because I can only imagine like a general audience who isn't really familiar with the story seeing the title of the show and the trailers and being like, why are we following these 2 random guys, like this knight and this random kid, like what's the point? But now that he's a Targaryen and the reveal is out there, maybe it'll get people to watch. I don't know.
Hopefully it changes people's opinions. By the way, come awards season, I'm awards pilled. Is this gonna be billed as a comedy or a drama?
That's a good question. I would put it in comedy, to be honest.
I would put it in comedy too. I think it'll have a fun shot in that. It won't probably win. The studio season 2 is coming out soon. For filming. But yeah, it's just very interesting to think about, because I think every other Game of Thrones show has been nominated. I think House of the Dragon. I don't know if season 2 was nominated in a lot of places.
I don't think so. No, season 1 was. I think.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, excellent episode. I can't wait to see how Dunk goes into next week. A lot of hurt feelings. This guy's very obtuse, but he's a very, emotionally vulnerable kind of guy. So we'll see what happens there. And yeah, you've been teasing the Egg and Aerion stuff, so I'm very excited to see how that develops as well. But yeah, overall, good episode. You guys can find me on Twitter, Harris EV9. And once again, episode airs on Friday, but we'll be back here same time, Monday at 7, to talk about everything that goes down with the latest episode.
Yeah. I actually didn't know that, so that's a good thing. But yeah, you can find me at EDG or TEG on all social medias. You can find some of my written work, a lot of reviews on the cinema spot. You can find this podcast at WFGFG Podcast, and you might be able to see us sometime later this week for our monthly episode of What We Watch, covering the month of January. Surprisingly, a lot of things that happened, a lot of things that we watched that were out in theaters. Um, this January. Quick question: did you see the Charlie XCX movie or no? The
Hell no,
moment.
I didn't see,
This guy.
didn't see the moment. I missed the moment. I'm sorry.
You missed the moment. All right. But yeah, we'll be back sometime this week or next week. We'll let you guys know. But other than that, we'll see you in a couple days for episode 4. Bye bye.